After testing the invisibility serum on himself, an insane scientist decides to take advantage of this new power, and it's up to his co-workers to stop this invisible threat. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Hollow Man, from 2000. In a secret government laboratory, a little mouse is left in the corridor of a huge cage. After running for the exit, the little animal is mysteriously lifted up and devoured by an invisible gorilla. Far away, scientist Sebastian Kane tests an experiment on his computer, but the results are not promising. After some thought, he decides to test a new formula that finally makes the experiment work. He contacts Linda, his ex-girlfriend and work colleague, and tells her he has found the formula to reverse the invisibility serum he created. She is thrilled with the news, and Sebastian summons her, along with the rest of his team, to start testing the new formula. The next morning, in the laboratory, one of the team members, Dr. Matthew, goes to check the animals for the experiment. Among them is Isabel, a female gorilla who became invisible after the serum tests and can only be seen with infrared vision goggles. Matthew opens the cell and tries to inject a tranquilizer so that he can take the gorilla to the experiment room. However, the serum is making Isabel increasingly aggressive, which leads her to bite the doctor's hand and escape from her prison. The doctor runs after her and bumps into Sebastian, who has just arrived. The two of them arm themselves with tranquilizer dart guns and run down the corridor of the laboratory until they find the gorilla, who has nowhere to run. Matthew shoots at Isabel and misses his target, but Sebastian takes her down with a clear shot. With this problem solved, the pair meet up with Linda and the rest of their colleagues in the experiment room to start testing the reversal serum. The liquid is then injected into Isabel's vein, going straight to her heart and being pumped with the blood through all the blood vessels. In a matter of seconds, Isabel's body starts to become visible again, and Sebastian celebrates his certain victory. However, the serum causes the gorilla to have a heart attack and she writhes in pain on the stretcher. The scientists try to calm her down, but her heart stops beating and it looks like the experiment has failed. Even so, Sebastian doesn't give up and orders his colleagues to revive her with the defibrillator. Finally, he asks Matthew to inject a stimulant directly into Isabel's heart, but soon the whole team realizes that her vital signs are stabilizing. Little by little, the gorilla regains consciousness and all her organs, skin and hair become visible. The reversal serum was a success and the whole team is going to celebrate this victory in a fine restaurant. In the middle of dinner, Sebastian and Linda meet outside the restaurant and the scientist tries to rekindle their relationship. However, she turns him down because she's already seeing someone, and Sebastian accepts her decision, without suspecting that Linda's new boyfriend is his colleague, Dr. Matthew. The next day, Sebastian, Linda and Matthew go to the Pentagon to present the results of the experiment. However, instead of saying that everything was a success, the scientist lies and asks for more time to complete his project. After the meeting, his colleagues reprimand him for his attitude, but Sebastian says he won't allow the government to take over his creation. What's more, he wants to test the serum on human beings and his first guinea pig will be himself. As expected, his entire team is against this idea because of the risks, but Sebastian says that the Pentagon has authorized the test. Linda and Matthew know this isn't true, but they decide to keep up the charade because they believe the scientist. Finally, the big day of the test arrives with Sebastian, who says goodbye to his appearance in the mirror before leaving. His team is already in the experiment room, so he lies down on the gurney and injects himself with the invisibility serum. At first, the substance doesn't seem to have any effect, but Sebastian feels discomfort, which soon turns into unbearable pain all over his body. Along with the pain, the scientist's skin gradually begins to disappear, revealing the innermost layers of his skin and muscles. The situation becomes more tense when Sebastian's vital signs spike, indicating the start of a cardiac arrest. Linda and the rest of the team try to stabilize his heart, but fortunately, his heartbeat finally normalizes and all his skin, muscles and bones begin to disappear. Sebastian becomes completely invisible and the first phase of the test is successful. Due to the effort, the scientist falls asleep, while being monitored by Linda and Matthew. Hours later, Sebastian wakes up, but he is upset by the light because his eyelids are invisible. Linda then dims the lights in the lab and presents the invisible man to the team, who are both impressed and frightened by the result. Sebastian soon takes advantage of his condition to joke around with his colleagues, but Frank reveals his location through the infrared goggles. After that, Linda and Matthew leave him in a room for rest and observation, as well as giving him the security protocol. However, Sebastian is more arrogant than usual and says that not only does he know about the protocol, but he reinforces that the whole project is his. Despite his rudeness, the couple decide to leave him alone in his room and ask Dr. Sarah to take charge of the surveillance on the night shift. Time passes without incident in the lab and Sarah falls asleep, while Sebastian can't sleep because of the light. Suddenly, he decides to go to the room where Sarah is, to give her a fright. However, when he realizes that no one is watching him, the scientist tries to take advantage of his colleague, who wakes up frightened but finds no one around. Sarah suspects that Sebastian did it and tells Linda and Matthew about her suspicions. The two are disturbed by the suspicion that Sebastian would do something so repulsive, but Matthew assures them that the scientist will be kept under surveillance. Later, over a meal, Sarah and her colleagues comment on the danger Sebastian poses by being invisible. Still, they take comfort in the fact that, before long, it will all be over when the reversal serum is applied. Finally, that moment arrives and Sebastian, together with his team, finish preparing the experiment to make him visible again. The reversal serum is injected and the scientist's body begins to return to normal. However, it doesn't take long for him to realize that something is wrong and he begins to feel short of breath, followed by an increasingly rapid heartbeat. Matthew and his colleague, Carter, try to help Sebastian, but he shows a strength and aggressiveness that is beyond human. Thanks to this, he easily strikes and throws them both and manages to break free from the restraints that were holding him on the stretcher. The rest of the team tries to intervene, but the scientist falls unconscious and is carried back to the stretcher, his body becoming invisible again. Minutes later, he wakes up to find that his reversal serum hasn't worked and that he needs to create a new formula. Linda and Matthew create a mask and a pair of latex gloves so that the scientist can work without having to hide from the light. So the new tests begin, but days go by and every attempt is a failure. Sebastian begins to feel sick from the side effects and from being forced to stay isolated in the laboratory every day. One night, the confinement becomes unbearable and he decides to leave, even against safety protocols. Carter tries to stop him, but Sebastian doesn't care and drives off in his car. In the middle of the road, two children look at the scientist and find his appearance very strange. Sebastian then takes advantage of his condition and removes his sunglasses, scaring the children into thinking he's a ghost. Minutes later, he returns to his apartment and from the window, he sees his beautiful neighbor closing the curtains before changing her clothes. The mad scientist decides to do the unthinkable and goes to her apartment. The young woman hears knocks on the door and opens it to see who it is, but finds no one outside. Unfortunately, this was Sebastian's chance to sneak into her apartment. The young woman then goes back inside, confused by what has happened and finishes getting ready, only for the invisible man to grab her and attack her in her own bedroom. Meanwhile, Linda is informed about Sebastian's escape and goes to his apartment to look for him, but only finds his mask and gloves. She then returns to the lab and tells the team to wait for Sebastian, but seconds later, the guy appears, as if nothing had happened. Linda scolds him for exposing himself in this way, but the scientist only replies that he will do as he pleases, as he is the project leader. However, the young woman is not intimidated and threatens him, saying that if this happens again, she will reveal everything to the Pentagon Committee. After this discussion, Sebastian returns to his room and the atmosphere in the lab becomes increasingly tense. To make matters worse, Linda fears that the invisibility serum is affecting Sebastian's mind, just as it made the gorilla Isabel more aggressive. His fears are proving to be true, as Sebastian is not only enjoying being invisible, but he intends to make the most of it. When night falls, Matthew continues his studies, until finally, he believes he has found a way to reverse Sebastian's invisibility. He calls the whole team together to do a mock test and the result shows a 95% chance of success. However, the serum soon begins to eliminate the blood cells and the attempt fails once again. This becomes the last straw for Sebastian, who can no longer stand being stuck in the lab and becomes increasingly impatient and rude to his colleagues. Later, while trying to sleep in his room, Sebastian looks at the security camera and has an idea. He takes some tools from the lab and uses them to set up the camera, which starts looping the recording of the scientist lying in bed. Thanks to this, Sebastian manages to escape from the laboratory unnoticed and goes to Linda's house. As he climbs up the fire escape, he gains access to the window of his ex-girlfriend's apartment, which is being visited at the same moment. To his surprise and dismay, Sebastian sees Matthew arrive and soon discovers the affair between the two. The couple are about to have a romantic moment, but the scientist becomes enraged, breaks the bedroom window and flees. After this scare, Linda calls Frank and asks about Sebastian, but he tells her that the scientist is in his room, unaware that the recording has been altered by himself. Hours later, Sebastian returns to the lab, still furious to discover that Linda and Matthew are together. As he paces back and forth in the room, one of the invisible dogs in the laboratory starts barking non-stop. Unfortunately, the guy can't stand the noise and, with his mind disturbed, he opens the cage and finishes off the poor animal. The day goes by and Sarah goes to look after the animals in the laboratory, until she sees what has happened to the dog on the infrared camera. She soon becomes suspicious of Sebastian and goes to question him, but he just denies everything and, to make matters worse, he still has the camera recordings in his defense. Later, Linda is in her apartment until she suddenly feels something approaching. She goes to check in the living room, but from her bedroom, a strong wind comes from her open window and blows her notes onto the bed. Fearing that Sebastian is there, the doctor tries to cover the living room floor with a blanket which, in a few seconds, seems to touch something invisible. Nervous, she flees the apartment and drives to the laboratory to see if Sebastian is really there. The camera shows that it is, but the doctor goes to prove it and finds the room empty. What's more, she sees the alteration that the scientist made to the camera and proves that the entire recording was a fake. Now that they know what Sebastian is capable of, Linda and Matthew decide to go to the head of the committee to reveal the whole truth. Meanwhile, she asks the rest of the team to stay in the lab and wait for the scientist. They all decide to go ahead with the plan, unaware that Sebastian has been close by the whole time and is already aware of the situation. He then follows the couple to the home of the committee's leader, who, when he learns what has happened, tells them to go back to the laboratory, while he asks the military for help in sorting everything out. The couple leave and the old man goes to call a military general, only for the phone to mysteriously go silent. If that wasn't strange enough, the door to his house appears open and he decides to investigate, but no one is around. The old man then lights his smoke, only for the smoke to suddenly take the shape of Sebastian's face, which promptly throws the committee leader into the pool. The old man tries to emerge and cries out for help, but the invisible man attacks him in the water and finally drowns him. The next morning, Linda returns to the lab and finds Sebastian, wearing his mask and acting normally. The doctor can't hide her nervousness and goes straight to find the rest of the team to wait for the committee's help. However, no one gets in touch and she decides to call the leader, only to discover that he has drowned in the swimming pool at his home. Linda then tries to contact the Pentagon general, but the lab's phone lines have been cut. The doctor sees no other choice but to go to the Pentagon herself, but to make matters worse, her access password is denied in the elevator. Linda asks Frank to check the security system and he discovers that Sebastian has changed all the access codes except his. The team soon realizes that the scientist is trying to silence them so that they don't reveal his creation and his criminal acts to the world. Even so, Linda hands them all pistols with tranquilizer darts and leads them in the search for Sebastian. Before going with them, Janice, one of the technicians, goes to the table and picks up the infrared goggles so that she can see the invisible man. Unfortunately for her, the villain finds her first and finishes her off with a piece of rope. The rest of the team go to Sebastian's room and find it empty. Linda uses the communicator to talk to the scientist and he reveals that he has eliminated the leader of the committee and will do the same with his team, as he will not allow anything or anyone to take his creation away from him. After that, he cuts off communication and Linda realizes that Janice is not with the group. She rushes back to the main room and finds her colleague in the closet, already lifeless. Faced with this tragedy, Sarah becomes enraged and punches Linda in the face for putting everyone in this situation. The doctor doesn't hit back, but says that if they want to get out of the lab alive, they need to find Sebastian as soon as possible. To do this, Linda asks Frank to try to hack the system and recover their access codes, while Matthew and Carter go after the invisible man. The two of them follow the corridors of the laboratory with the infrared goggles, while Linda guides them with the help of the security system. Readers indicate that Sebastian is in a nearby corridor and the pair go there, but they don't find him. Suddenly, they see signs of temperature behind an iron pipe and Matthew fires a shot in that direction, but it was only a ventilation duct. Unfortunately for them, this was the distraction Sebastian needed to attack them and he starts by pulling Carter's head over an iron pipe. Seeing his friend in danger, Matthew tries to hit Sebastian and hits the air pipe, which causes the steam to reveal the scientist's location. Sebastian tries to escape, but first he drops Carter's body and hits his neck on a sharp pipe. Matthew immediately asks Linda for help, but she warns him over the radio that Sebastian is still nearby. Matthew shoots at the air pipe, which starts spewing steam all over the place. Thanks to this, he can see the shape of the invisible man, but the villain gives him a blow and closes the gates to the corridor, leaving him trapped. Bewildered, Matthew tries to locate the villain with his infrared vision, only for Sebastian to use the steam in the room to disrupt the reading of his googles. With no other choice, the doctor grabs a fire extinguisher and uses it to show the shape of Sebastian's body. The plan works and he sets out to attack the invisible man, but the man easily dodges and strikes back with punches and kicks. Matthew is knocked to the floor, but fortunately, the doors to the corridor open and Linda appears to save her boyfriend. In the meantime, Sarah and Frank rush to where Carter is to try and save him. Due to the seriousness of his injury, the doctor goes to get a blood bag from the lab's medical department, but Sebastian follows her and leaves her locked inside with him. Sarah rips open the blood bags and throws them on the floor so that she can see Sebastian through his footprints. However, there is no sign of the mad scientist and she sets off to save her colleague, only for Sebastian to appear from across the room and strike her in the face. The doctor retaliates by throwing the container of blood at Sebastian, revealing his body, but he uses force to knock her to the ground. Sarah tries to fire a tranquilizer dart, but the invisible man picks up the gun, fires at the doctor and ends the confrontation by striking her in the neck. At the same time, Frank tries to look after Carter, but he can't resist his injuries and perishes in his arms. Linda and Matthew arrive soon after and the three of them go in search of Sarah, but it's too late and they find the doctor's body in a freezer. The couple try to revive her, while Frank uses the fire extinguisher to locate Sebastian. However, in a moment of carelessness, he doesn't notice the invisible man approaching from behind with a crowbar and then becomes another victim when Sebastian hits him. Soon afterwards, he also strikes Matthew, who falls to the ground, seriously injured. Linda tries to help him, but Sebastian pushes the couple into the freezer, pulls the bolt on the door to lock them in and turns the thermostat to the minimum temperature. As a result, the temperature in the freezer begins to drop gradually and before long, they will both freeze to death. Linda immediately takes some tape and uses it to close Matthew's wound, but the doctor loses a lot of blood and passes out. Alone, the doctor panics, but she doesn't want to give up just yet. With her wits about her, Linda assembles a magnetic magnet using the metal drawer handle and the defibrillator's power wires, and uses it to pull the bolt and open the door. After much effort, her plan works and she manages to get out of the freezer before it's too late. Meanwhile, Sebastian puts on his suit and goes to the experiment room, where he mixes chemicals to create nitroglycerin, a highly explosive compound. He distributes the compound into several containers and puts them into a centrifuge with a timer that reads 5 minutes. Unbeknownst to him, Linda has survived and sets off after him with a tank containing a flammable liquid. Finally, the villain is about to leave the laboratory, but the doctor appears and lights the hose of the reservoir, creating a makeshift flamethrower. With it, she fries the invisible man, who screams in despair as his body goes up in flames. She continues to fire mercilessly at the villain, who tries to remove his costume in order to escape. Despite this, Linda continues to chase him, but her flamethrower begins to fail and Sebastian, even with his skin burnt, takes the opportunity to escape and becomes invisible again. Linda then uses the flamethrower to activate the fire system's sprinklers, so that she can see Sebastian's form with the help of the water. However, the villain appears behind the doctor and starts hitting her with punches and kicks. He manages to knock her to the ground and uses his foot to stomp on her neck and slowly run her out of air. But at that moment, Matthew appears behind him, holding his crowbar and hits the man on the head, who falls unconscious to the ground. The doctor helps Linda up and the two of them try to get out of there, without realizing that Sebastian has regained consciousness and has even picked up the crowbar. The villain tries to attack the couple, but Matthew dodges the blow and Sebastian hits him with everything in an energy box, which electrocutes him until he collapses. The shock makes part of Sebastian's body visible again, but he shows no reaction. The couple then run out of there and go to the experiment room, but they see that the centrifuge will be activated in a matter of seconds and that inside it are vials containing nitroglycerin. This will blow up the entire laboratory and there is no time to deactivate the centrifuge. The two of them run to the elevator and climb the security exit, where there is a ladder leading to the exit. The couple start to ascend, but seconds later an explosion occurs and the entire laboratory is destroyed. Linda and Matthew manage to get high enough to escape the blast radius, but the impact sends the elevator hurtling towards them. The two manage to dodge, but the elevator falls again, but luckily it stops before hitting them. The danger is apparently over and the couple continue upwards, but Sebastian appears alive and grabs Linda. The doctor tries to break free, but they both fall on top of the elevator, which is about to collapse. Sebastian then grabs Linda and, in a final act of insanity, forces her to kiss him. Linda accepts, but takes advantage of this to grab a power cable and, soon afterwards, she knocks over the elevator, which falls, taking Sebastian with it to his elimination. Finally, the nightmare is over and Linda and Matthew are rescued by an ambulance, the only survivors of the nightmare created by the Hollow Man. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.